Good evening, I'm Pio Ontiveros. This is News.PH, but it's not politics as usual. What a long career in politics Senator Edgardo Angara has had. Is it coming to an end? Does he still feel the need to make a comeback? Or can he be in public service without being in politics, either as an appointed or elected official? Senator Angara himself will answer these questions as he joins us tonight here on News.PH. Good evening, Senator Angara. Thank you very much for joining us.
Salamat, Pia.
Kahit na kulang ata ang kalahating oras para sa'yo.
Sobra na nga yun.
Hindi kulang sa dami ng tanong ko. Well, let's begin with this, Senator. So will you just like fade away, ride into the sunset?
Like John Wayne.
Not quite.
Hindi naman. Because I'll continue my service to our country in a way without being in government nor being appointed to any position. Because I've been elected president of the Global Organization of Parliamentarians Against Corruption, GOPAC. And this is based in Ottawa. And we are organized regionally. We have chapter in Latin America, in Africa, in the Arab countries, in Oceania, etc. And I do visitation. For instance, in the past month, I've been to 3 countries. I've been to Azerbaijan, I've been to Paris, I've been to Spain, talking with fellow parliamentarians.
So there is much to keep you busy.
There's so much.
Yeah. We will go back to the GOPAC, but okay, I just wanted to clarify this and para lang klarong-klaro at maliwanag. Would you ever run again?
No.
So not for senator.
Not for barangay captain.
Not for governor. I was about to get there, but not for governor, not for mayor, provincial board member, councilor. Kahit barangay captain.
Hindi na.
You've proven yourself na, no?
I think 34 years of my professional life I've dedicated to my country. I think that's enough siguro, and give the younger generation a chance to rise.
Okay. Is that what you had in mind when you gave way? Was it to your brother or your...
Yes, to my brother. Yes.
You were supposed to run for...
Governor.
Yes.
Okay.
But there's so much, like we said, that you're still doing. So we'll talk about GOPAC in a while. But I wanted to start with the Angara Center for Law and Economics.
And Economics. This I think what I felt is missing in our society and in public life. Someone who can study policies and recommend policies for big problems, policy studies. And I think that's one of the biggest problems of a legislator. You don't have access to studies of problems and possible solution. That's why you are groping all the time.
Right, groping in the sense that you need to consult.
So many. Well, that's okay. But there's no fixed institution where you can ask opinion or study a problem. Unlike, for instance, in the West, think tanks are abounding. Even in Malaysia, in Singapore, in Hong Kong, in Japan, think tanks are all there. That's why policies are made, I think, much better.
Or there's more common sense in them.
That's right. Yeah, you can distill insights and wisdom out of this policy. Tayo wala eh. And ako, I'm a little bit better than most because I came from academia, I came from UP, and I know the talents, I know the areas of expertise of practically everyone, and I can access them. But what about the newcomer, the ordinary legislator? That's really a vacuum.
I like how you describe how you envision the Angara Center to be. You said, and I quote, you want this to be a think tank that is Filipino at heart, global in outlook, etc.
That's right. The Filipinos, I think, because of the nature of our environment, archipelago composed of many islands, we are happy living in Cebu or in Masbate or Romblon. There's not that much global and outward-looking perspective. And that's what I think Filipinos ought to adapt now, because the world is getting smaller, getting globalized, and getting nearer to each other because of technology.
I skimmed through, sir, I'm sorry, sir. I skimmed through some of the material on the Angara Center, and one thing really caught my mind, maybe because for many of us na mga OC or detalyado na tao, there is this thinking that we must pay attention to the small things, the small matters. Is that right?
You have to pay attention to details, because it's details that can derail big ideas. And therefore, I think you can study the lives of people, great thinkers, great scientists, and I think without exception, those guys pay attention to details.
Okay.
They have big ideas, but they don't forget the small details.
Another passion of yours, which I'm sure is still going to be on top of your agenda every day, is science and technology.
Yes.
And of course, this is not just the Cybercrime Prevention Act, but we are lagging behind, hindi po ba, sir, our country?
Very much so, because I don't know for what reason, because we know that the Filipino youth is naturally attracted to numbers and logical thinking, and therefore, the world around them, and yet we are lagging in math and in science. Unlike the Confucian societies like China, Japan, Korea, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore, I think their Confucian upbringing makes them conscious that numbers and the environment around them, whether it's biology or chemistry or the natural sciences, are very important to the planet and to their own selves. And therefore they pay attention to it. That's why they excel. They excel in math and in science. And I think excellence in math and science can be our way out can be the fastest passport to progress. We can leapfrog our development by utilizing technology and science.
We're about to go into education, but just as a konting cambio lang.
Detour.
Detour ng konti. Sa cybercrime, just one little question there. Do you regret that moment in time when, in a way, time stood still, when there were questions about the very so-called objectionable provisions of the Cybercrime Prevention Act? Para bang na-overshadow tuloy yung buong the intent, the entire width and breadth of that law?
Believe it or not, I was not surprised. In fact, I welcome the questioning and the doubting, because it's really an entirely new field. It's a frontier area. And yet, I'm not a scientist. I'm not trained in science at all. But I saw that cyber world is going to be our next frontier that we've got to conquer. And if anything goes in that world, then it's like the wild, wild west, where anyone can just shoot anyone that moves. And that will make everyone unsafe and unhappy. So there must be some modicum norms of living and let live. And I thought the cybercrime law that they put together was that, except that you can never come up with any perfect law at one blow. And so I welcome this criticism, not of the entire concept. I think the concept was entirely accepted.
Right.
And out of maybe 30 provisions, a maximum of 3 provisions are just being questioned. So I thought that's good enough. And I welcome the scrutiny that's being paid to it now.
This was a running theme in your career as a legislator. You're described as non-confrontational, but you invite people to debate and to discuss.
And I think that accounts for my productivity, that I can get even the toughest law through, because I invite that kind of scrutiny and discussion. And then we come to a consensus if we can. If not, then we move on. We move on to other
Okay.
areas.
Another one of your passions, Senator Engaro, of course, education. There is that Congressional Commission on Education whose work literally, I suppose, laid the groundwork for today's K-12 program. But what can you say? There are some people who yung mga non-believers in K to 12, for example? What can you say to them?
Yeah, it's natural again because just sending your kids to school for 10 years is already a drain on one's pocket, especially if one cannot use just existing on a hand-to-mouth existence.
Unless we see it as an investment.
Unless you see it as an investment. But people really just fight for survival. Many unfortunately are that. But the practical things, if you try and examine it, is that this is going to double their investment in education. Let's take the addition of 2 years to the basic education from 10 to 12. Just having 2 years to our basic education will already bestow or invest the Filipinos a measure of dignity and recognition. Engineers or graduates of engineering, architecture, nursing are all treated second class everywhere in the world because we lack 2 years in our basic education because everyone else has 12 years of basic education except 3 countries in the world. We are one and the other 2 are in Africa. So this will practically give a leg up to our kids who are being shortchanged all throughout these years.
Level the playing field for us,
Level
for our kids.
That's right. And
Okay. As UP president from 81 to 1987, it must have been a heartbreaking thing when you heard about this young UP Manila student who took her own life. No, my question really is, how should UP address this socialized tuition fee issue?
I think it needs a thorough re-examination, not only on the substance of the scholarship program, but also on the processes and procedures. I think there's really something to say about the UP is becoming like an ordinary government bureaucracy. The processes are slow, and the steps are too many for an academic institution. Scholarship, for instance, we raise millions, no, even billions for the interest and welfare of faculty, for building our physical plants. It's so easy to set aside a substantial part of that to scholarship, because to start with, UP tuition is already at a bargain. So a little just addition to that, and literally make a UP a full scholar, I think won't hurt the finances of government nor of the viability of UP.
We started the show, sir, by speaking about the Global Organization of Parliamentarians Against Corruption, GOPAC, no? And you talked about, in your acceptance speech when you were made chairman, you talked about a regulatory audit, and is this correct? A dismantling of a politician's capture? Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a phrase in public ad, PIA, called regulatory capture.
Regulatory capture,
yeah.
Okay.
That means that an agency who regulates, for instance, utilities, electricity, water, energy, is captured by those it's regulating.
Okay.
That means the people there are practically dictated upon, and so the tariff and the regulation and the terms are generally more favorable to the provider rather than protecting the interest of the consumer. That's what we call regulatory capture.
Okay.
Now, there's the equivalent of that is some agencies are captured not by the regulated but by politicians.
Okay.
They have such dominance over that agency that what they say usually goes to the detriment of the public.
Can you give an example right now?
Pagkatapos of the end. So isa yan, ha?
Okay.
The other one, sabi ko, is regulatory audit. It simply means that every agency now must run through and make an inventory of the rules and regulations they are implementing. And if this regulation is circa 1930, 1940, 1950, please delete it. It's obsolete.
Yes.
If this regulation is already being done by another agency and probably being done more effectively than my agency, delete it. In other words, try to shortlist the bare essential steps needed for you to pass a license, to issue a permit. Count the steps, because this country is very famous or notorious for difficulty in doing business. It's so difficult to set up a business. It takes so many steps from the barangay level to the national agency.
And that, of course, would impede progress. Anyway, we're going to have to take a short break. Senator Edgardo Angara is our guest on News.PH. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching News.PH on the Solar News Channel. I'm Pio Ontiveros. Our guest tonight, Senator Edgardo Angara. Senator Angara, Philippine-Spain relations, why do we need to go down that road of strengthening our ties with a former colonizer?
Because we are unique in Asia. We're the only Hispanic colony in the whole of Asia, and that stands out. And because of our Hispanic, which also translates to Western values, we are the only race with mixed Asian and Western values. And that's why you find Filipinos anywhere, whether Alaska, Finland, or America, easily being absorbed into the society, being assimilated. We don't establish ghettos like other nationalities because of that Judaic-Christian values we inherited from Spain. And I thought that's worth preserving rather than discarding it
But why take a really keen interest in it?
Because 30% of our language is of Spanish origin. Our food, our cuisine, our dress, even your looks, you're more Hispanic than Filipino, is Hispanic. And I think that's a great advantage to us. In the same manner that we ought not to disown English because it's not our native tongue. But again, English is the redeeming edge we have over the rest of fellow Asians.
And Baler, Aurora, is the site of?
Baler, Aurora is the site of the Seeds of Baler. The Seeds of Baler is both symbolic and substantive. Symbolic in the sense that that's the last Spanish garrison of their entire empire anywhere in the world, and their colonial rule of the Philippines. Because even
last stand.
Last stand.
Okay.
But more substantively, the Battle of Baler, where the Spaniards, where our Katipuneras fought the Spaniards, showed the innate nature of our people. We are generous in victory. We are not vindictive. We are not vengeful. Because even when the Spaniards surrendered, we saluted their bravery and courage, and we let them pass wearing their uniform, and we let them go back to Spain. On the other hand, the Spaniards also showed their loyalty to their country by fighting up to the very end, ready to die for country and king. So it shows the distinctive traits of two nations on the part of the Filipinos, magnanimity and generosity of heart. On the part of the Spaniards, courage, bravery, loyalty. Those are universal traits, and we showed the world that we are that kind of race.
Well, speaking of courage, bravery, and loyalty for country, let's talk about the territorial disputes in the West Philippine Sea. You had contributed those archival maps to the exhibit at the Metropolitan Museum. itong nangyayari sa West Philippine Sea, I'm sure you will say we did the correct thing and we went to arbitration. But what do we do when we have no navy to speak of?
Well, that's the legal route that you pointed out, that we followed the legal direction. We didn't take the law into our own hands. And we were quite obedient and lawful. Okay, that's one route. But in diplomacy, as I understand it, there are also other ways of pursuing a dispute so that you can find a compromise, like back channeling, like getting an honest broker, third-party broker, etc. I'm sure the Philippine government and our foreign office are doing all of that, but without the knowledge of the public. But I think we ought to put all those techniques of dispute resolution and utilize them to the full.
Exhaust.
Exhaust them, because we cannot afford, as you said, we have a banca against a carrier. You know.
Yes.
So uneven fight yan. But the overall thing, I think, and I'm sure this dispute will be resolved, but it may not be resolved within your lifetime. I'm sure it's not within my lifetime. Okay. But it's quite unfortunate because we have almost millennia of relations with the Chinese. The Chinese have been trading with the Filipinos long before the Spaniards came. They were trading in Mindoro with the Sultan of Sulu and all that, and artifacts, whether in Cagayan, up north, or in Baler, show that we've got a thriving trading post with the Arabs and with the Chinese. So sayang naman yung immemorial relations na yan.
Okay. Yeah. What about, and very quickly, what about that shooting incident where a Taiwanese fisherman died? Was our country well within its rights to block a foreign vessel?
Well, there's a dispute whether they are within the territorial waters. But I think, again, shooting and killing is the last resort. And but on the other hand, the reaction of the Taiwanese, I think, is also excessive. Because no less than their president made this this threat that they'll deploy there.
I wish we had more time so that we could talk about culture and the arts and the dangal na haraya that the National Commission of Culture and the Arts gave you. But I just mentioned that there was one bill that didn't see the light of day, the Political Party Development Act. What would that have done for our political party system, which we know anyway is in a shambles?
If that law get passed at the time I filed it during the 10th Congress, and that's almost over a decade ago, I think our political system would have been a little bit better. This jumping from one party to another at one's convenience, and mostly to the ruling party, would have been minimized. I'm not saying it's going to be eliminated. This shifting of party, this lack of a political party who will identify future leaders, train them, groom them, as we used to do before the war, would have been an excellent school for politicians. Right now, there's no such thing. No such thing.
Okay. And of course, sir, there is your home province, Aurora. I know you may get a little bit con about this, but we'll try and get this out of the... So
dynasty.
There's the
dynasty.
Yeah, hindi pa naman po. So there's that, sun, sea, and surf. People are crazy about Baler, Aurora right now, and there of course is Apeco, for which you and your family have been criticized. You wrote a very interesting letter to the editor of the Inquirer, and I don't think, because like you were saying, this is genuine development. You're moving for genuine development. I don't think people will quarrel with that, no. But when you talk about myopic thinking, are you referring to those who say that there is conflict of interest?
No. I will reject conflict of interest because I think that's number one rule. That a public servant ought not to serve his own interest against the public's interest. But there is no such conflict of interest because my family is not invested nor financially interested in it.
So there's no financial investment of any of the Angaras there?
None at all.
Yeah. None of the area in the 12,000 hectares is land belonging to the Angara clan?
Well, it may have belonged to the Angara clan, but long before that APECO was established.
Okay.
But the important thing about APECO Pia is that this is the only gateway, it's the only port facing the Pacific. There is no wharf.
None other, no?
None other. All the ports are on the China's sea side, and all the great ports of the world, from Sydney to Singapore to Shanghai to Los Angeles to San Francisco to Vancouver, are all on the Pacific.
On the Pacific.
Tayo lang ang wala. And yet we occupy almost not the entire land, but such a long stretch of the Pacific.
Okay.
And that on the Pacific, we have undisputed jurisdiction.
So, and that's where the genuine development comes in, because hindi na kailangan umikot yung barko.
Correct. And
dito na siya dadaan.
At saka, that northeastern Pacific of Luzon is virgin territory. That's frontier town. About 1 million land and water will be opened up if there's a catalyst of development in that area, and APECO is the catalyst. It will not just benefit Aurora, it will benefit the landlocked provinces of Quirino, Vizcaya, Southern Isabela, and Northern Quezon, from Infanta up. Well,
well, it doesn't really matter which province it benefits. It's going to benefit the entire country that way, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's exactly the point.
Well, we have to move on from APECO, sorry. Other laws you authored, like Senior Citizens Act. Is there anything that can be added to that? You know, Makati has those.
Yes. Well, Makati did better because
one better.
In implementation, they're giving more than the benefits I put in the Senior Citizens Act. Like, you know, movies are free every day of the week.
Okay.
So where can you find a place like that?
Maybe we should do that anyway. Well, speaking of seniority, so many politicians and officials are getting stem cell treatments. Sir, can you honestly tell us, have you had stem cell treatment?
Not at all.
Stem cell therapy.
Yeah, stem cell.
Not at all. Wow, buti na lang.
Not at all. Alam mo, you know, 2 years ago, while we are a young nation, young population, I established an institute on aging. Because the study of aging is not only for the aged. The study
it's for those of us who have to take care.
For everyone, even from the kid, a kid. Because when you study the process of aging, you study the brains, your cells, etc. And you learn what will ultimately make you sick, especially brain. Now, so I consulted so many of the neurologists and the brain scientists, and in fact I talked to one Phil American whose specialty is precisely that, brains and stem cell. And the first thing he told me 3 years ago, he said, I heard in the Philippines it's so fashionable, celebrities, politicians are having stem cell. Yes, I said, that's very dangerous, he said. Because stem cell is still a new technology. It's not tested yet.
Experimental. Okay. Okay. Sige.
So, how can I submit naman to stem cell?
Thank God you did. But anyway, from stem cell therapy for those politicians, let's talk about what is most difficult about being a politician. That's the umbrella question, sir. Okay. Now, you wanted, and I'll try my best to get through all of this because we don't have enough time. So you wanted to run for president in '98, but then you slid down to be VP for former
because
President.
all the surveys show that I cannot win against Arab.
Yes, but at least you came in number 2 kahit papaano to GMA, a little over 5.5 million votes to her 12 million. But after 1998, did you ever entertain thoughts of running again, still for president in any? No more na. And in one sentence, why?
In one sentence, why? Because I'm pragmatic and realistic enough. I may have gotten already everything I wanted in life, and the presidency is not the one thing I wanted for myself. Of course, it's nice to be president, but I've done practically everything within my capability and within the time given to me.
In other words, sir, you realized you didn't need to be president to do good for the country.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Of all the roles you played, what was the most difficult? So let's begin with, would you say it was being Senate President? Not quite?
Not quite, no? Not quite.
So
not
you
quite.
Commiserate and empathize with JPE?
Yes. I do sympathize and empathize because that's really a hot seat under any era, under any.
Yeah, whether or not you are close to the powers that be.
That's correct.
Matter.
That's right, because you're balancing demands and clamor and claims of 23
others
people who think they're brighter than you, and maybe they are.
That's a nice way of saying that. Okay, so I'm not going to ask what is the worst part of being Senate President. I think that's it. When 23 other people think they're brighter than you. Who was the best Senate President for you? You've served since 1987 as a senator.
Yeah. I think it's hard to say. Relative, may strength. Each one of them has their own strength relative to each other. But overall, I think Salonga raised the bar so high in terms of moral stature and moral standing of the Senate.
Okay, well, that's nice to hear.
Yeah.
Well, so let's go back to JP. He was your fraternity bride, Sigma Rho, and then you put up ACRA together pala, no? Before he went off to put up Pekka Bar. Where did he go wrong, you think? Or would you rather not call?
But the assumption is that he went wrong.
Yeah. Well, he went wrong in the sense that, you know, after the impeachment trial, and then here comes the campaign. Parang naging downhill na eh, because nahirapan si Jack sa kampanya niya, no? So, syempre iniisip ng tao, where did JPE go wrong and where did Ed Angara go right? Because you had JPE's son who didn't make it to the Senate, you had Angara's son who did make it to the Senate.
I think it's a complex of factors. You can't put your finger on one single factor, and I'd rather not analyze.
Okay, that'll save us time. That's fine. Okay, so let's go back to the roles that you've played. What's the most difficult being executive secretary for just 20 days?
Probably that's the most difficult time in my life, because I was really literally walking the tightrope. And if I did a misstep, an explosion can occur, because both sides are geared to fight and to battle it out.
Yeah. When you say walking the tightrope, sir, that was because this was right in the middle of the impeachment trial.
No, the impeachment is finished.
But you took over, hindi po ba, January 6th?
Correct. But that's, I said, I was walking the tightrope because there were demonstrators across in Malacanang, and there were tanks also prepared to fight inside Malacanang, and calls coming from almost everywhere, including abroad, telling me what to do, and
telling you what to do and telling you what to say.
What not to do.
What not to do.
Correct.
Like, and so, do what? As in, tell your president to step down?
Tell your president to step down and all that, and surrender. You see, that kind of babel of tongues can be confusing, especially in a tense moment like that. And I was sleepless for 48 hours, just manning, so to speak, the post. And yet, we succeeded in providing for a peaceful transition. That's right.
Okay. But when you took over on January 6th, after Ronnie Zamora had left, did you know that the end was near already?
I have a sense that it's impending.
Okay.
But the uplifting thing about that is that day one I was in Malacanang, people who have never thought of ever setting foot on Malacanang came and asked for help. Businessmen, ordinary people, even some of the military. And in that few months, I was able to set, number one, the ground for resuming talks with the NPA. We were already, with the not NPA, with the Communist Party. We were all set to resume the peace negotiations.
Okay. So in those 20 days, you felt the clouds hovering in a way. Is that
It's
why?
a little opening.
With an opening, okay.
Yeah, it was an opening, and I thought we were a little bit winning back the faith of people in government in Malacanang, and they're willing to open up as well.
Okay.
And it was, I thought, an opening for us to resume talks, both with the moral liberation as well as with the Communist Party.
Okay. So those last few days of Erap's presidency, because you felt that the end was near, is that why you started the diary, that famous diary?
Well, not because of the, well, I know, because when I started that, that was already 48 hours into the end.
Okay.
And for sure, there must be an ending, whether we stay or we go out. And so
you felt the need
to just jot down.
to write down
just
everything.
jot down.
Oo.
But
course.
but the 13 days I was there, as I said, people open up. There was an opening for peace talks with the MNLF then. There was an opening of peace talks with the communists.
Have you ever talked about that
Huh? No.
before?
No. This is the first time I've
Who were
talked
those
about it.
people?
Well,
Can you specify?
I will tell you off camera.
Off cam?
Yeah, because I'm going to write that in my
And you're going to
memoir.
write, which is my next question. So you will write a memoir.
Yes, I hope so.
You've always written down, I mean, because being an academic,
Yes.
you've always been writing down everything.
I jot down. I jot down notes on important. And
When
I
you jot
think
down, what's this? Separate notebooks, pieces of paper, and then
pieces of paper and notebooks, not a formal diary. I sit down every night and put down my.
hindi naman ganon.
Hindi ganon,
I don't think you'd have the time for
No,
that.
no.
So you will publish it.
I hope so.
When? Kaya?
Soon.
Soon. Which is 2013 or next year. Will you revise history when you edit?
No, never.
No, you
I'll
will,
tell it as I see it.
as you saw.
As I saw it.
Great. So you will simply tell the truth?
Yes.
And, okay.
I'll tell my narrative as best as I can and as faithfully as I recall it. No more, no less. I'm not going to add nor subtract.
Can you invite us to the launching, sir, when it's ready and done and published?
In fact, I'm going to ask Solar to host it.
Oh, okay. Biglang nag-okay ako. Siyempre, hindi naman ako magde-decision yan. But anyway, okay. Well, very quickly, they're telling me to wrap up. So, speaking about the truth, is there one big untruth about you? If there is one big untruth about you, what would it be? What is it?
I think, by and large, I think people see me as I am. And because I think I talk straight, I don't tell a lie, I hope.
Sir, you're reading my mind, or you probably can see my questions. Because I'm going to ask you, what is the biggest lie you've told? Have you told a lie? And you've read my mind. Oh my God.
No,
you don't even
never.
camouflage the truth.
No, I don't. I don't even.
Or you could sense I was going there. But anyway, let's go back to Erap, sir, very quickly. Did he really need to be Manila mayor again? I mean, if you were going to advise him at that point, yes, go ahead.
I think back of his mind, he needs popular redemption. And
Popular redemption?
Yeah, because he was convicted and it was true. He had been pardoned, but he needs that affirmation of the people. Yes, you are not guilty. We are willing to take you back.
But he ran for president in 2010. He came in number 2 after.
Very strong number 2.
A very strong number 2.
But in politics, there's no number 2.
Okay. I just wanted to end with social media. You're on Twitter, sir. Do you tweet yourself? Kayong pumis? No. Have you tried tweeting by yourself?
But seldom.
Seldom. Why not?
I guess I'm not techie enough. Unlike Sunny, my son, the guy does it himself.
Yes.
Because he's the the techie generation, the social media generation.
But sir, di ba your passion is science and technology?
Oo nga, pero I'm the teacher rather than...
Okay, but when you do tweet,
Yeah.
you also retweet, you reply.
Yes, yes.
I mean, you pay
Very
attention.
but very seldom.
But very seldom.
Ah.
Okay. So, anyway, well, one last thing, just to end the show, and since we're showing photographs of you with your son, Sonny, what is that one thing you told him when it was clear that he had won in the last election?
Well, I was asked that question during the final days of our session. What will be your advice to Sonny? I said, just be yourself. Don't pretend to be someone else you are not. Because I think people will see through and they will appreciate that you are true to yourself and you act on your conviction.
Wow, great words. I hope we still see you around Senator Angara.
We were just together. We is it inaugurated? No. We joined this escuela taller. This skills training for teaching skills to out of school youth who will learn the traditional building techniques like intramuros. We need these carpenters who know how they put together those big stones,
Adobe by
well, sort and how they carve those very nice big hard wood. So we attended that session together at noontime.
Well, Senator Angara, we've come to the end of our more than 30 minutes of News.PH. I wanted to say thank you very much, Senator Angara. And I think the country will miss seeing you in the Senate. I mean, of course, I think people are going to be happy that Sonny Angara is there, but we hope to see you around still.
Yeah, I'll be around, Pia. And thank you very much for having me.
And we'll invite you again, sir.
Salamat.
Maraming salamat po, Senator Edgardo Angara.
Salamat.
Thank you for watching. I'm Pia Ontiveros. This is News.PH. See you again next Wednesday. Good night.
And I know the talents, I know the areas of expertise of practically everyone, and I can access them. But what about the newcomer, the ordinary legislator? That's really a vacuum.
I like how you describe how you envision the Angara Center to be. You said, and I quote, you want this to be a think tank that is Filipino at heart, global in outlook, etc.
That's right. The Filipinos, I think, because of the nature of our environment, archipelago composed of many islands, we are happy living in Cebu or in Masbate or Romblon. There's not that much global and outward looking perspective. And that's what I think Filipinos ought to adapt now, because the world is getting smaller, getting globalized, and getting nearer to each other because of technology. So.
I skimmed through, sir, I'm sorry, sir. I skimmed through some of the material on the Angara Center, and one thing really caught my mind, maybe because for many of us naman mga old go back, but okay, I just wanted to clarify this, and para lang klarong-klaro at maliwanag. Would you ever run again?
No.
So not for senator.
Not for barangay captain.
Not for governor. I was about to get there, but not for governor, not for mayor, provincial board member, councilor, kahit barangay captain.
Hindi na.
You've proven yourself na, no?
I think 34 years of my professional life I've dedicated to my country. I think that's enough to siguro, and give the younger generation a chance to rise.
Okay. Is that what you had in mind when you gave way? Was it to your brother or your...
Yes, to my brother. Yes.
You were supposed to run for...
Governor.
Governor.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But there's so much, like we said, that you're still doing. So we'll talk about Go Back in a while. But I wanted to start with the Angara Center for Law and Economics.
And economics. This I think what I felt is missing in our society and in public life. Someone who can study policies and recommend policies for big problems, policy studies. And I think that's one of the biggest problems of a legislator. You don't have access to studies of problems and possible solutions. That's why you are groping all the time.
Right, groping in the sense that you need to consult.
So many. Well, that's okay. But there's no fixed institution where you can ask opinion or study a problem. Unlike, for instance, in the West, think tanks are abounding. Even in Malaysia, in Singapore, in Hong Kong, in Japan, think tanks are all there. That's why policies are made, I think, much better.
Or there's more common sense in them.
That's right. Yeah, you can distill insights and wisdom out of this policy. Tayo wala eh. And ako, I'm a little bit better than most because I came from academia, I came from UP.
Here on News.PH. Good evening, Senator Angara. Thank you very much for joining us.
Salamat, Pia. Thank
Kahit
you for
na
having
kulang
me.
ata ang kalahating oras para sa'yo.
Sobra na nga yun.
Hindi kulang sa dami ng tanong ko. Well, let's begin with this, Senator. So will you just like fade away, ride into the sunset?
Like John
Not
Wayne.
quite.
Hindi naman. Because I'll continue my service to our country in a way without being in government nor being appointed to any position. Because I've been elected president of the Global Organization of Parliamentarians Against Corruption, GOPAC. And this is based in Ottawa. And we are organized regionally. We have chapter in Latin America, in Africa, in the Arab countries, in Oceania, etc. And I do visitation. For instance, in the past month, I've been to 3 countries. I've been to Azerbaijan, I've been to Paris, I've been to Spain, talking with fellow parliamentarians.
So there is much to keep you busy.
There's so much.
Yeah. We will go back to the Good evening, I'm Pia Ontiveros. This is News.PH. But it's not politics as usual. What a long career in politics Senator Edgardo Angara has had. Is it coming to an end? Does he still feel the need to make a comeback? Or can he be in public service without being in politics, either as an appointed or elected official? Senator Angara himself will answer these questions as he joins us tonight here